I'm Howie Rodenstein, who I think most of you probably know, the founder and chair of the ride. And before we go into the business here, I want to officially welcome and congratulate the new executive director of the Friends of the Arava Institute, Rachel Calico, who became official on June 1, replacing Miriam May, who had a great tenure. And we're all looking forward to a wonderful tenure of Rachel. Rachel, you want to say anything?
Thanks, Howie. It's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone again going forward. Thanks a lot.
Unfortunately, I've done a couple of these Zooms before. And I don't know, there's at least a couple of people who have, this is their third time that the ride is, a number of us, the third time that the ride is being canceled, or actually the fourth time. And I think there's even someone who's tried 3 or 4 times and has yet to be able to come. There's a number of us alumni who have done that. So it's not the best place to be in, but to be honest, as we looked at the situation, we just, with all the uncertainty and instability, and the kinds of financial commitments we would have to make beforehand with things happening or not happening. And, in the end, yes, this is a wonderful ride and event that we all enjoy and love, but we do this to raise money for the Arava Institute. And so there's a financial side to everything. And, I've had conversations with a number of you over the last couple of months that, who have said, it's the ride is a happy, wonderful, smiling, great thing. And we don't necessarily know if this is the time to do that. And so, unfortunately, we came to the conclusion that we really just couldn't run the kind of ride we promise and we like to deliver this year. And it's very unfortunate. But there's a lot of things that are difficult in today's world. Before we talk about what the implications are, what that means, what the alternatives, et cetera, anyone have any questions, or anyone want to make any comment? If you do, unmute yourself and please say who you are and where you're from. Just before we endeavor to talk about the future, let's just talk about where we are today. If anybody wants to say anything, and I'm not forcing anybody to. Yeah.
Hi, this is Larry Herring in San Diego. So I have a question. On the last ride, we split into, I think, 3 cubit seam in the Gaza envelope towards the end of the ride. I guess maybe 2 nights before the end of the ride. The kibbutz seam that we were on, were any of those destroyed in the attack in October?
When you say we were on, if you're talking about where we stayed over, no. But the area that we rode by and the kibbutz seam that we rode by, yes. But the ones that we slept in were further enough away from the envelope that they were okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, in terms of going forward, what we're trying to do is give you the opportunity to be as flexible as we possibly can in terms of what your options are going forward. Pretty much the only thing we can't do is refund any money that's come in as fundraising. And apart from that, also, we cannot use money that's come in as fundraising. You cannot use to pay your own way for covering cost of the mission if you're interested in the mission. But beyond that, there's a tremendous amount of flexibility. So first and foremost, we're doing a special opening of registration for 2025. It's only available to all of you. You can just take your reservation fee and roll it over, so there's no cost to doing it. And although we don't have all the parameters yet for the 2025 ride, what the fundraising is going to be for this and that, and we don't even know exactly the itinerary, because we may have a shot at going back to Mitzpe Ramon, because the hotel may be finished construction or may not. But you'll be guaranteed as a 2024 registrant that you get the same fundraising minimum and no extra costs for registration. That will be sent, an email sent to everyone probably tomorrow to be able to do that. I think we've said that registration, which is a special registration, will stay open until June 30th. So that's one option. For those of you who were registered for 2023, we created options, and another one of the options is to donate some or all of your registration fee or some or all of what you've raised already to the ride, to the Arava Institute, to help us. The Arava Institute has a big hole to fill, which was the money coming in from the ride, and still has costs associated with the ride, even though it's not happening, the year-round staff that work on it. And so we have plenty of challenge there. And many of you were very generous last year in donating some of your proceeds. And so that, again, will be up to you. You can donate some, you can use some, roll some over to 2025. It's really almost anything you can think of, you can do. And we'll just want to get an idea over the next couple of weeks as to what you're thinking. Before I get to the mission side of things, any questions about that? Yeah, Neil.
Neil. Unmute yourself, please.
Can you have Alana or whomever send us individual emails to tell us what our
Yes.
what we have in our piggy bank?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll, if you don't know what you have in your piggy bank, we'll anybody who doesn't know, instead of sending 100 emails that she has to go in, anybody who wants to know that or doesn't know, just email her and ask her, and she can tell you.
Okay.
Any other questions about sort of what you can do in terms of the cancellation? And we're going to send out a form tomorrow or the next day, which you'll be able to make all these choices. If some of these choices you're not sure what you want to do, you can fill in on the form in the open area, TBD or not sure, or just wait a little bit in terms of doing it. But we'd like to the extent people know what they're thinking, we'd like to get an idea too of what you're thinking so we can plan. We have a big hole to fill in terms of what the ride was planned to generate for the Friends of the Arava and the Arava Institute. And we also felt a big kind of hole in our community that happens when the ride gets canceled. And we've all been through each in I think your own way, a set of emotions over these last, I heard today on the news, it's already officially 8 months, as hard as it is to believe. And so we came up with the idea and the approach of trying to do something that would sort of allow people to experience Israel a little bit after October 7th and what that means. Do a little bit of riding as well, since that's in our bones as to many of us. And also spend some time learning more about the Arava Institute and at the Arava Institute, which is the wonderful organization we support. And we came up with the idea of a 5-day mission. And the idea of a mission is, in general, as many of you know, you pay your own cost for a mission. But on top of that, since we have a whole, and somebody asked what the whole is, we count on, the Arava Institute counts on north of 6 figures, somewhat over $100,000 each year from the Israel ride, including covering some of its costs. And so we have a good sized hole to fill. So in this case, we've taken the approach that says, as a mission participant, you have to pay your own way sort of to get there and for the hotels and the costs. And on top of that, raise a minimum of $2,400, which all will go directly to the bottom line of the Arava, the Friends of the Arava and the Arava Institute. We hope people will raise more, the same way when we have a fundraising minimum for the ride, we hope people will raise more. But it's a way to try and help a little bit on that deficit, on that hole that's been created. The mission is 5 nights. We start Sunday afternoon/evening, and we finish Friday afternoon. It's Sunday afternoon, October 27th. So we're doing dates that are very similar to the ride dates. We finish on Friday, November 1st, I believe it is. So those of you who are interested but dying to get back to experience the American election on November 4th, will have the opportunity. I'm not sure if it may not be better to be in Israel for that, but that's a personal choice. Basically, the program is not fully defined yet, but what we're looking at is the first 2 days are primarily sort of experiencing Israel after October 7th. At a minimum, we will visit the Gaza envelope in the areas there where we normally ride by, and the site at Reim where the rave was, and also meet with people in some of those various communities. We're also hoping to, although it will be via Zoom, not in person, but be able to connect with some of the Arava Institute partners in Gaza. Easier said than done, but we hope that will be part of that. We will stay in Tel Aviv Sunday night, Monday night stay in Ashkelon, and then Tuesday night stay in Mitzpeh Ramon. For those of you who are alumni, the hotel in Mitzpeh Ramon is still under construction, but as a small group, we can stay at the secondary hotel that we've used, that some of you may have stayed at, called the Ramon Suites. Then ride on Wednesday. Ride to Tura in the classic route that we've done. The idea is then to probably spend Thursday at the Arava Institute with an immersive day of maybe some classes, some programming, some meeting with students and alumni. Staying at Kibbutz Tura, and everybody as a small group, everybody can stay there. So we don't have any of those transportation issues. And then on Friday, ride from Tura to Eilat. From a riding perspective, we're not going to have 3 riding groups and all the possibilities to go at one of 100 different paces for 100 riders. We expect to have more or less one riding group that would be in the 12 to 15 mile an hour or 13 to 15 mile an hour average pace on rolling hills, which is what generally we expect in the Tzofim group, or more towards the front half of the Tzofim. Our plan as of this point is to do all rental bikes, because to bring bikes for 2 days is kind of a lot of a hassle. We are working on programs to happen on those 2 riding days for someone who A, doesn't want to ride, or B, wants us to bring a spouse or a family member to join who's not a rider and wouldn't be interested in that. We'll probably have a day of agricultural volunteering somewhere, or volunteering, and probably a day of visiting some Arava Institute sites in the field as part of those 2 days. Although, and again, we can't plan a lot of what our program is going to be, because October is still a long time from today, and things could be very, very different then. The cost, our cost estimate right now is $3,600 per person. We reserve the right as we get closer and understand a little more, if the costs go up a little bit or down a little bit, to adjust that a little, because we really need to cover costs. We want to give 2024 registered riders first dibs to sign up for this mission. We're going to limit it to somewhere in the 30s of number of people. Second priority would be to spouses or significant family members so it's first 2024 riders, and then spouses and family members. We already have people who were not registered for the 2024 ride who have expressed interest. So we want to find out in the not too distant future who's interested and who's in, and so we can kind of go from there. We're asking anybody who's interested now to provide a $500 non-refundable deposit. That could be from your registration fee from the Israel ride. That could be new from your pocket. That could be, however you want to do it. I think that's kind of an outline of what it is. And this is a work in progress. We expect once we have an idea of people who have expressed a significant amount of interest, even if they haven't committed, we'll do a call and get some feedback from people and talk through some of the options. And that's kind of where we are. David, Sharon, anything you want to add or clarify based on what I said, based on our discussion so far?
The one thing that I would clarify is that price is single occupancy. So if you get a roommate, it could be cheaper. But we based it all on single occupancy.
That price is double occupancy.
Oh, it is double. We changed it then.
Yes.
Okay, missed that. Sorry, forget what I said.
I guess I'd ask one question of the group, maybe just by show of hands. How many people have been to Israel since October? Okay, so a few, and the reason I ask, I think for all of you, if you haven't been but have talked to people who have been, um, it's different from the last time you were there. And I think certainly from my perspective, the idea of the mission is really to align itself much more closely with a first or early visit after last October. That's going to have a very different feel, as Howie already noted, from the ride, but based on what we've heard from others and some of our own observations, I think it includes a lot that people are finding very meaningful on their first trips or second trips back even. That's different from a bike ride. And I think importantly, it's also different from an all volunteer experience. Volunteer experiences have been very meaningful for a lot of people. But also a lot of people express that before they do that, they do want to have a closer sense of sort of seeing, touching, feeling some of what happened last October. So the idea of this is to combine that with service opportunities and with also assuming conditions permit a small riding opportunity, which I think hopefully that ties a lot together into a 5-day trip.
Okay,
Let
Go
me
ahead, Nick.
open it up for questions. Just, yeah, go ahead, David. I say David, there are 4 people may start talking.
I'm gonna take the liberty of being the David you're talking to. I don't know if I was or not. Hi, everybody. Brenda and I apologize for jumping on the call late. And if this was covered, I apologize for the redundancy. Howie, if we do the mission, are we able to roll over, are we able to utilize the funds that we have raised thus far for our 2024 ride to roll into any portion of the expenses or the $2,400 fundraising contribution for the mission?
You can, funds that you've raised as donations can be used to cover the $2,400 donation amount. Your registration fees can go towards the $3,600 mission cost, but the funds that you've raised as donations cannot go towards the $3,600 mission cost.
Understood. Okay, thank you. And just a comment to add for you all as this is evolving from Brenda and my standpoint. We are very interested in doing this if we can make it happen. And personally speaking, for us, though you guys all know we're riders, I'm not really enthused about renting bikes and doing the ride. I would be just as happy to do a hiking component or something else with that time, and save the complexity that would be involved in rental bikes and all of the above, all the rest of this stuff. Yeah,
That's good to know.
our 2 cents.
Yeah, I think I'd second that.
I would agree with that as well.
Can I give a bit of an experience?
Sure.
When we canceled our ride last year, I got notice that another ride that was going to continue in March, that I worked for Camp Vermont every summer, and so they were going to continue to do their ride. I signed up for the mission immediately, which included a day of riding, and the group voted on the mission to not ride at all that day we planned to ride, and instead to do more volunteering and to do more reaching out to people, because we felt, and this is I get goosebumps thinking about it, we felt the enormous gratitude of the people in Israel that we were there, the enormous gratitude that we were listening to people that had hostage families and whatever or people that had lost other people, and we felt that that was the real meaning of our trip, and that riding was very far down on the list of things that we thought were important, and that was in March. So I think that the mission was amazing, and B, I'm planning to go along on this one, and C, I would encourage your thinking about what a few of us have just said, that we'd rather continue to have our experience of helping and learning rather than personal writing, which we can do at home or in any part of the world that we choose.
Uh,
Thank you for
Yep.
doing this. This is great, Howie.
I think that's all great feedback. It was our thought that there would be multiple options, either a writing option and a non-writing option to do those things. But as we see people who are interested and we put it together, we'll pull the group and see where we go. Absolutely. Our primary goal here is to, at least from my perspective, it's to experience post October 7th Israel, and contribute to post October 7th Israel. And part of that is through supporting the Arava Institute, which we all know is incredibly important. And part of that is just being there in whatever way you are. And whether it's supporting vendors who've lost out on tourism or doing volunteer work in various kinds of places. So great feedback.
No, I think Brett has his hand up.
So I had a couple of questions, Howie. First, I guess with an eye towards the fundraising obligation that one would be signing up to, did we give any thought to, like, branding this as sort of Israel Ride Special Edition as opposed to a mission, which is, I was sort of thinking about how I would go about asking people for money to pay for my mission to Israel. That it might be an easier sell if it's sort of just another Israel ride. It's just going to look a little different than typical. That was sort of one question. And then my second question is, at one point we had talked about optional volunteering opportunities, and I guess for me, I just hate to travel. So if I'm going to go to Israel, and the volunteering is important, I want to do enough of it to feel like I'm doing something. So is there a possibility of maybe finding some place where we, those of us who are interested, could do spend a week in a kibbutz working or building or whatever it might be at that point?
Yeah. So in terms of the second question, to do an add-on kind of thing, there's lots of opportunities to do that. And if we find out who's interested in what way, I think we can help make the connections. And I think there are other organizations that are organizing those things in a way, so we don't have to organize them. We just have to make the right connections and let some of that. In terms of the fundraising piece, I think what we thought of was important to us to separate this in some sense from the Israel ride. And as part of that, you're not asking people to pay for your mission. You're paying for your mission out of your pocket. You're asking people to donate to the Arava Institute, which is a great cause, and that you believe in as well. So I think different people have, certainly in terms of alumni, have different networks of people that they've gone to in different ways. But that was we wanted to keep it separate because it's a very, we think it's a very different experience, and it's not an Israel ride.
Brett, one possibility, and I'm looking into myself, is something called SAR L, which is sort of, it's basically going into the Army as a volunteer. It's not available on the week prior to the mission. It's only available afterwards because of the Chagim. So the first availability would be the Sunday after. So you could do the mission and then hook onto something like that. But because of the Chagim, the chances of you doing anything beforehand would probably be pretty slim.
Yeah, we are tight. We are tight relative to the end of Sukkot or Simchat Torah, especially if you're a 2-day observing American. As it relates to, I think that ends on Thursday, and we're talking about starting Sunday night. But we wanted to keep the group freed up to be back for November, because that's a lot of feedback we had gotten from people who around the dates that we had this year and in the past.
I might mention there's a group called Sword of Iron that was formed shortly after, not long after October 7th, that basically has acted as a clearinghouse for volunteer opportunities. They're on Facebook, I think on WhatsApp and who knows what other things, but it's phenomenal. And I think we have at least one person who's registered, I think, for each of the last 2 Israel rides. And once had to cancel and once was canceled. Just came back from a month in Israel, who spent virtually all the time they wanted volunteering, where, every day you can pick exactly what you want. So I'd strongly recommend that to anyone who's looking at whether it's you want a day or 2 before or after, or to arrange something longer. And while we don't have to make it formal, I'd say let's share notes, because Brett, I think there's probably quite a few people who'd be interested in extending their stay and, picking an activity. And if I follow the group on Facebook, the experiences that people are sharing back are amazing. And what's nice is it's literally, things you can do for a day, things that require a lot of physical activity, things that don't, things that are convenient, things that are more difficult. Pretty much anywhere in the country. So people who don't know the group, if you're on Facebook, look for it. And I think you'll find it an easy way to pick things you might want to do before or after the mission.
That's great. Thank you. On the fundraising stuff, I guess I would, maybe there's some sort of template or language that we can share with folks just to help kind of bridge this. Because I think that what I've heard from people is, the Israelite is canceled. So that's sort of the headline that's out there now. And so I would try to sell this as this is what I'm doing in lieu of what I would have done. And
we can draft. I think that's a great suggestion. We can draft some templates.
The Israel ride is canceled, but the Arava Institute is not, and its needs,
right.
And its needs continue.
Right.
And for the last number of years, I've used the term now more than ever in my fundraising emails. But I think now more than ever is the appropriate thing to say about the Arava Institute.
Yep.
And Brett, there is a virtual ride for 2024. And when you're filling out the forms, because I tested it to make sure that they worked, you can sign up for the virtual ride, which is what I did. My funding that I already did fundraising will move over to that, and that will count towards the mission. So I'm doing it as a virtual ride and not really selling the fact that, yes, I'm going to go to Israel, but the fundraising is a separate entity. And that's going to track all your fundraising as well, where the paperwork for the mission won't. So if you are doing the mission, you will have to sign up for the virtual ride for the fundraising aspect.
I think the thing to keep in mind that's important is that fundraising for as part of this isn't fundraising to participate on the mission. It's fundraising to support the organization and to support the institute, right? Every participant on the mission is paying to participate, and then you're fundraising to support the organization.
Right.
And yeah, as Howie and David and Sharon said, we can give you language for all of that and what's happening now and why it's so important right now, and the mission and the niche that it's filling. But I think it's not that you're fundraising to participate on a mission. It's making that distinction. Then we can help you with that.
I want to offer, Mimi and I just got back from Israel on Monday, and on Sunday, and we volunteered with Sarel for 2 weeks, and we had a fantastic experience. And so I'd like to offer you, Howie, if somebody wanted to know about Sarel and wanted to get some kind of feedback from somebody who's experienced it, they can truly contact me and Mimi. So it was just a great experience. So we stayed at 2 different bases. The structure of Sarel is you volunteer on IDF bases. So and you work from Sunday to Thursday, and you basically do manual work that the Army needs to be done. There's not the manpower to do that. So, but it was a great experience.
Yeah,
Myrtle?
and for those of you for whom the mission doesn't work for whatever set of reasons, we still would love your help for the Arava Institute. And we set up this virtual ride or when we thought the ride was still going to happen. And it was really driven by some alumni who said, I can't go this year, but I have a network of people and I really believe in the Arava Institute and want to help. And so I want to keep doing what I've been doing and raising money for the Institute. And so the virtual ride is welcome and open to everyone. You can take your 2024 monies that you've raised so far for the Israel ride and put, instead of rolling them into 2025, put them into the virtual ride of 2024. There's no fundraising minimum for the virtual ride unless you're a mission participant where you have that minimum. Again, it's all about us making sure we continue to support the Arava Institute, whether that's biking, hiking, walking, experiencing, or in any way that we can.
Randall, go ahead.
So just a point of clarification. So the mission costs $3,600 to participate in the mission, and there's going to be about 40 people. The 2,400 is the amount that you would have to raise outside of that 3,600 as our commitment to going, okay? And monies that we have given to the Israel ride, such as registration fees, that can be rolled into that 3,600. But the 2,400, the money we've raised from donors towards the Israel ride can go into the 2,400. Is that all correct?
You got it correct. And that's it's not like we're choosing one or the other. Donation money is donation money, and there's limitations on what you can do with that. And your registration fee, you can use that towards the 3,600 or towards next year, or get a refund if you so desire.
Or donate it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're here, is to raise money for the Arava Institute, right? The ride has always been a joyous perk.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments? So you will get an email with a cancellation form to help us figure out what's going on. It will ask you, one of the things is the same question we asked in the email as to where are you in terms of interest for the mission? Because we'd like to figure out who's interested, whether we can open the group up a little more, and then get the group together to talk about what we do and how we do it, and some of those ideas that came up tonight. I think we can absolutely work towards getting some volunteer opportunities for the week after. For those people who want to stay and do that, it would not work well the week before because of the holiday. We're gonna reserve rooms at Keturah, where we'll be Thursday night, Wednesday night and Thursday night, so that people will, if people want to stay there for Shabbat, we can do that. And there's obviously other places you can stay in Eilat, or you can go, sort of anywhere. We were, just like the ride, we were building in a flight from Eilat back up north, whether you use that immediately or a few days later. But that's built into our cost structure, as are all meals and pretty much everything. In that sense, it's other than going to the hotel bar, you're pretty much covered once you join.
Could I make another plug for the virtual ride? It's a huge opportunity. I think for most of us, we thought of it when we added it to the calendar this year, like Howie mentioned, is, it's a nice option for people who aren't able to join us on the ride this year, but we're not doing the ride. The virtual ride is a great way to do your own thing, but to do it oriented towards supporting the work of the Arava Institute. And if you have friends you wanted to invite into the Israel Ride community, where inviting them to come all the way to Israel to join you for a bike ride is a really big hurdle. Get them to join you for a virtual ride, pick your own route, but do it in honor and support of the Institute, or do your own thing. But I think especially in a year like this, where fewer people in general are traveling to Israel, we're not able to do the mission. We are able to do the mission, we're not able to do the bike ride. Having groups like this join us on the virtual ride, and take the fundraising for it seriously, can make a big impact on the Institute. So please join us. And that's a decision you can make immediately. Whatever funds if you start to raise money on the virtual ride, those will count as towards the 2,400 we're asking people to raise, who are joining us on the mission.
And if you raise money on the virtual ride, and then later on decide that maybe the mission is for you, as long as there's room there, that money that you've raised on the virtual ride can scoot over and count for your fundraising minimum.
Exactly.
Well, yep, Bruce.
Before we get off, if it's appropriate, you might mention whoever wants to stay on, and then if someone wants to give us a little bit of an update about the students at the Machon and what's going on with the Machon, 5 minutes, I think it would be appropriate.
Great. Rachel, you'll be happy to do that, right?
I can do that now. Yeah, I have something else in 10 minutes.
So let's, why don't we, anybody who doesn't want to stay for that, feel free to jump off. Anybody who has questions, further questions, feel free to reach out to Alana or me. Again, let us know from the things that we send you what your interests are, If you're not sure, that's all right. Tell us that you're not sure between A and B. We just want to get a pulse as to where we are. Thank you all. Thank you all for your understanding and support. And may we have better days ahead. And may the Arava Institute help us get there. Rachel, tell us how.
Thanks. Hope to see all of you in Israel. So tomorrow's graduation. Actually, it's a small semester. There are about 28 students on campus. Israeli Jews, Palestinian citizens of Israel, East Jerusalem Palestinians, some international students, 2 American students. It's a small semester for all of the obvious reasons that you know. American universities are not approving study abroad in Israel right now because of the war. Palestinians from the West Bank are not being granted permits by the Israeli government, and there are no visas, coming from Jordan. So our semester is smaller than usual, but we still have this diversity. And from what I understand, they did the multi-narratives trip, the dialogue, the classes, biodiversity tours, and it's been a very close group with some very dynamic young people. Last week, the Institute, one of the amazing things about the Arava Institute this year is that nothing has stopped. So by when October 7th happened, to back up for a second, the semester had already been in session for 5 weeks. Students had been engaged. Palestinians did not leave the campus. Israeli Jews who were called up for reserve duty came back to finish the semester on campus together. And it was a strong community who really felt that that was their place, and a powerful model. And so throughout this whole year, the academic program hasn't stopped. Applied research projects haven't stopped. Last week, the Institute hosted a group of about 40 Bedouin and Palestinian women who were receiving training in how to use solar technologies and renewable technologies. They spent time at the Institute, they traveled to other places, and it was very emotional, the evaluation on the last day of the multi-day conference. These women were crying that they had had this opportunity, and they talked about bringing this back and encouraging their children to continue to study, to grow up and pursue this and come to study at the Institute or to study at university. But they were talking about how important they realized this was and how important for their communities and the economic development and educational opportunities of their communities. Those are just a couple of the very recent pieces that are very exciting. We're working with Palestinian and Israeli partners in introducing water technologies for Gazan refugee camps. And we have a launch conference for that this coming Friday in Tel Aviv. Also working with private companies in Israel on that and in bringing in this humanitarian assistance. So there's a lot going on at the Institute right now. Hopefully you will all be there in the fall, and we'll be in a very different place. And you'll meet students, you'll visit our projects, you'll meet people who have been going through the year and what they've experienced. And you'll get a sense of the hope and the action that the Institute is bringing and what you're all contributing to by participating in this. Thanks for joining this. Bruce, thanks for asking. Happy to take any questions. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Rachel,
Yeah.
I just think that some of the points that you just made about what did go on in the fall and what is happening with this group graduating now, despite everything that people make assumptions about can and can't happen in Israel during this time. I think in some of the templates that we can use for fundraising, those are amazing pieces of information for us to be able to share. And for those of us who have been to the Institute before, some of the information, clicks for us more readily than others. And so I know I would appreciate some of those points because it really isn't about the ride. I also feel that like I would be more than happy to go and not get on any rental bikes and have it all be about the conversation and what we're able to bring from the experience back home afterwards as well, and what we can provide while we're there. So the ride would be extra. And for those of us who've had experience of riding days get canceled, and what we got instead that was so meaningful and connected us with the place in a different way. The bike's great, but it doesn't have to be.
Great.
At some
We can
point, it would be good
absolutely
to
share
hear.
this information with you. Yeah, go ahead.
At some point, it would be good to hear about what's going on with the universities, not today, and what's going on maybe with the State Department, who I know was supportive in the past at some point. But I'm not asking that you get into that now. But thank you.
I just want to reiterate what Lori said, which is that as you were speaking, I was taking notes because I thought this is exactly the substance of a letter I want to send out to my contacts. I wonder even if we could highlight the graduation event, if there are going to be speeches or remarks that are quotable, obviously not length, but just full quotes. Maybe we could have some access to, some summation of that. It would be a wonderful thing to show people that there are graduations and people are still, rising through the institute and moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. We can send these little bullets out that I just shared. And usually the graduation is tomorrow at about 7 a.m. Eastern time. So I think it might be streamed should you be up, but usually we receive some recordings. It's recorded and we get pieces from it, and the students' speeches, which are usually very powerful and emotional. So we'll be able to share all that with you.
Thank you.
And we'll be sending out a link to the recording of this Zoom. So Neil, if your notes didn't get it all, you can hear Rachel again in all of her eloquence.